Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really happy to be here today to share my story. It's definitely a big shoe to fill, speaking after an actor and a veteran TED speaker, but I can simply do it the Trump way, which is my way, and hopefully I can share my story and inspire some of you. The theme today is catalysts, and the topic I was assigned was education and social mobility. This is something that is really close to my heart, and I've dedicated the past nearly 15 to 17 years working in various capacities on this theme. So what is catalyst? I will start by defining and interpreting these words in my eyes, and then I will share my own story and give a few words of advice to students here. So when I first looked at this word catalyst, it actually brought back horrific memories of chemistry A-level. And I thought, but if I were to apply the word catalyst to our everyday life, we can basically see it as an agent of change, someone or something that effects change, and not just any change, but change at a fast rate. But to add to that, I actually see catalyst as something that actually evokes change in a positive way. With that, then, I would like to interpret the word social mobility. Social mobility, for most people, you would see it as a way to help under-resourced or grassroots students or people move up the social hierarchy in society. However, for you guys, as many of you millennials, I would like to also add one more definition of social mobility. Research has it that millennials nowadays will potentially change jobs 11 times in your life, and potentially 4 different industries. So an abstract way of seeing social mobility is this. How do you change from one social context to another social context? And how do you transfer your skills, transfer your mentality, and still, change and excel in this new context? So at the moment, it sounds a little bit abstract. So where did I get this thought from? And I will have to go back to my own story and go back to 2008, where I was at Goldman Sachs. And so for those of you who knew what happened during 2008, Goldman Sachs is not the place you want to be or should be, because that was during financial crisis. So I was seeing my friends being, we used to have an ICQ in Goldman where we basically communicate with each other with an internal network. And my friends were usually on the available category, but during that few months of financial crisis, I saw a lot of them dropped off like flies into the NA category, which meant they're fired. And if you're fired at Goldman Sachs, you would be escorted out like a criminal by guards. So it was a really, really, I would say, interesting, but also quite terrifying period at the bank. But then, a few months after the financial crisis, Goldman decided, especially my team, which went down from 13 people to 2, they decided that they had actually overfired. So I was tasked with 2 things. One is to go out and rehire. Okay, especially looking at Hong Kong graduates, because we wanted someone who could speak Cantonese and Mandarin. And the second task I was given is to raise morale within the remaining teams. So I was asked to get involved with community service, and there were 2 options, and one option was picking up rubbish in the beach, and the other option was to teach under-resourced students interview skills. So obviously, I chose the latter. With those 2 things, I actually had a revelation that was related to education. With the first of hiring new undergraduates, and many of them had these amazing CVs, amazing experiences, amazing grades on paper, but when they came into the interviews, or even when we gave them an internship, they didn't exhibit those critical transferable skills necessary in the work environment. So that got me thinking, the world is changing much faster than education is. So we're no longer looking for knowledge. Knowledge, you can be replaced by Google. I go into Google and I will know much more than you would ever know from research. We really needed skills. So that's the first revelation that came to me, and I was like, what's going on with the field of education? The second thing is, In teaching these under-resourced students interview skills, we partnered with an NGO, and it was very underfunded, and it was not very well coordinated, and the materials we were given to teach the students were not up to quality. But the most important thing is, the students we were actually teaching were the wrong target. What that means is, at the end of the interview skills workshop, we asked the students, would you ever want to apply to a company like Goldman Sachs? And they just looked at us and said, no, I never thought about that. I actually just want to be a sales in my local grocery next door. So we actually gave them, and they looked at us and they're like, you guys are from the Eiffel Towers, we can never be there, we don't want to be there. So we felt that we were targeting the wrong audience. How can we actually target the right people to make a bigger change more effectively? So that got me really intrigued into the field of education. And I decided to catalyze the process and go and speak to a lot of people. A lot of stakeholders in the field of education, including teachers, politicians, investors, NGOs, schools, and universities. And we asked them, how can we help to make a change in the education industry? And obviously, the ones who were most interested to talk to us were investors of education companies, and they said, look, you can come in as a corporate financiers. But then I actually wanted to get my hands dirty in the field of education. I wanted to experience it myself. I wanted to try it out myself in evoking change in the industry. So I decided to quit Goldman Sachs and be a local secondary school teacher. So you should have seen the face on my father when I told him this decision. He thought I went crazy after the financial crisis. And I said, I just really want to do something before I turn 30. And so I went on and I left Goldman, and then I realized I was properly unemployed and properly unemployable, because apparently you need qualifications to be a teacher. So I sat there thinking, I am not unemployed and I am not employable. So I knocked on a few local schools' doors, and not many people took me on board, apart from one that said I could be a substitute teacher, and I ended up teaching geography and history. I relearned everything. But with that then, what did I see in my experience in this local secondary school? What are the education gaps that we observed, and what are these gaps that we wanted to fill? I observed three things. One is I realized a lot of students actually lacked a sense of direction. Now, I'm not saying that at the age of 10 and 12 and 15, you're expected to tell me that I want to be a lawyer definitely for life, or a medic definitely for life, because if you had said that to me, then your parents must have done a really good job brainwashing you. But I just wanted to see a little bit of sense of direction in terms of what am I interested in? What am I interested to pursue? Could I turn that interest into a passion? Do I have something that inspires me that I want to take it further? That kind of direction. So upon asking students, why not thinking one or two steps further, they say, well, my goal is to get into university, which is right. And universities care about grades. I can put down in my application medicine, law, psychology, science, social sciences. Ultimately, I don't get to choose. My grades will choose for me which direction I should go. So many of them are either frustrated because they're not getting that grade in that particular subject, or they might feel deflated, so unmotivated. And that is one other trend that we see. They're unsure of what options are out there. Thirdly, some of the students are really, really well-equipped, star students, but for them, when I see them and I talk to them and I teach them, I realize a lot of them have a lot of knowledge, but not the transferable skills that I think they will need to excel in university and beyond. So with those three inspirations, we really wanted to help them find the direction. Potentially, if we could be greedy, seek interest to make it into a passion, identify options so that they can be more positive in the process of education, and also build skills so they're not competitive just short-term, but competitive in life. So we did a lot of things, including skills programs, consulting, etc. But what was really close to my heart is that how can I go back and did what I did at Goldman and help the under-resourced students? And this time, I will focus on the right target, those who I can really, really help and those who really do need our help. So we focused on under-resourced but high-achieving students. A lot of people in Hong Kong say, when you're helping under-resourced, you're looking at the marginal students. And when you say marginal, a lot of them think they must be, maybe on drugs, or they must be from really horrible, broken families and, horrible living conditions. But from our perspective, we wanted to help the marginal students who are at the top of the under-resourced segment, who, if we can give them a little bit of inspiration, a little bit more exposure, a little bit more guidance, the world is theirs. So that is the segment that we wanted to target. So what did we do? We went out and partnered with St. James Settlement and 10 schools. Well, we started with 3, and now we have 15. And then our vision was to bridge the opportunities gap for the under-resourced and high-achieving students through 3 things. 1, we wanted them to have more exposure to find the direction. So we partnered with 50 companies across 24 industries, all the way from medics, hospitals, law firms, to media companies, to tech startups like 9gag is also one of our partner companies, to provide these students with career opportunities and mentorship. Second thing then is they need to build skills, because skills will not just get you into university, but it will make you a much more all-rounded and complete person post-university. So we deployed all our teachers to schools and host big literacy days, public speaking events, reading and writing skills, get them to read books that's not in the textbook, but actually books that people actually like to read. So, and that was really, really interesting, especially for the corporates that actually partnered with us to provide these skills training. A lot of these skills training starts off with one thing, and that is self-reflection, personality identification, and what is it that you want to achieve in life. And that is provided by lots of the corporates. Lastly then, is helping them identify options. Hong Kong versus overseas. Hong Kong universities are great, they are amazing, but they only take on 18% of students in Hong Kong. They are very much grade-based, so if you're not a natural-born academics, you might not be able to pursue your dream. Overseas universities, they're looking at a little bit more diverse aspects. They look at skills, they look at your interests, they look at your extracurricular activities, and hopefully, in some ways, we can help some of our students pursue these options. So what do we do? This is just a case study that, of one of our students. The girl on the right is Rosemarie, and she was an under-resourced student, very under-resourced. So every step of the way of her education, she actually funded herself through going for essay competitions and getting a few thousand here, a few thousand there, funded by the government, funded by school. And her at that point, she thought, I'm good at writing, I should really be a lawyer. Unfortunately, because she is half African and half Chinese, an ethnic minority, her Chinese was scoring a 1 to 2. And as you would know, that would not qualify her for any subject in Hong Kong. So if she had stayed in Hong Kong and we hadn't met her, she would not have gotten into any university, and she would have just gone off and done something on her own before university. So with her, we helped her find her direction. We put her through various work experiences, not just law, but also media, advertising. So she sees things beyond her imminent goal. Then she decided that actually I really like social sciences because I want to know how the world comes about. Because through media, where she hosted a radio show, she actually got really interested in sociology and anthropology. And then we identified options for her. With someone who could not have the right grades, she would be penalized for the Hong Kong and even UK system. But what about US? She has interest in extracurricular activities. She's a great leader. So we nurtured her in that sense. We encouraged her to go for these essay competitions, but not just writing random essays, but going for international competitions, writing about policy making, about politics, about sociology and anthropology, but related to ethnic minorities in other countries. And the US loves this kind of diversity. So she applied but got rejected by every single university, and we thought something must be wrong in the process. We worked with her on skills. We worked, any of you who have done SAT and all those ACT examinations would know it's skill-based, it's not knowledge-based. We worked with her on that, so we were like, what could have gone wrong? So we went back and partnered with her school to look at her recommendation letter, which was not written in the US style. So we redid that, reapplied, and she ended up getting into University of Chicago, which, as many of you would know, is a top 5 US universities, and she got a presidential scholarship, and she is now actually a case study for the university. So for this student, we did not just bridge her social mobility upwards within the society, but we also bridged her from one context of what she was in to another context. And she seamlessly transitioned because she had those skills, that preparation, and that aspiration to bridge the gap. So what does this mean to you? Because you might not be under-resourced, you might not have the same profile as her, but out of these 3 things, I just want to focus on the first, which is finding direction. A lot of students say, I'm only 16, 17, how can I find direction? Number 1, identify what interests you. It doesn't have to be academic. It could be extracurricular. It could be video gaming. Okay? Video gaming, I see a lot of nods there. Number 2, reflect. What are the elements that you love in video gaming? Is it just that monotonous physical motion? Or is it the strategy? Or is it, the business part of it that you can buy other people's weapons, etc.? Okay? And then thirdly, relate the elements to real world. Okay? And you might say, I don't know what the real world is like. Well, a lot of people do. So go out and make connection. Be proactive. Go to education and career fairs and talk to people with experience. Research. Eliminate what you think is not something that's of interest. And then try to get some experience, whether it's work or whether it's through summer programs or through talking to alumni. So with that kind of mentality, we helped a lot of students under-resourced, got into Cambridge, and then this student is a dropout, was kicked out of school, and ended up getting to 7 medical schools. DSE student who otherwise, most people think DSE, you can't do humanities, going into history and politics at Oxford. More under-resourced students, and then more and more of these case studies. So it's been a really rewarding experience for us because we go back to our first mission and vision, and we are helping students, not tutoring, not academics, but really bridging the skills gap into real life. And also bridging social mobility by offering the high-quality service that you would see in the private sector and applying it to the public sector. So with that, I shall conclude my presentation, and I just want to leave all the students here with a few thoughts. It's really important that you really think 1 or 2 steps ahead and think about what really intrigues you, what really interests you, and pursue that interest. Make it a passion. Well, if it becomes a passion, you don't have to make it a passion. It will become a passion. And hopefully you will then perform and excel effortlessly because you love what you do. Thank you very much.